listen up because this is very important. What time is it? It's 9:38 p.m. on the 5th of Sunday, August 2018. Today, I really want to break down the macro, what's going on in the entirety of the world from my newfound learnings and my curiosity as for how that affects me in the micro, me, right? So today I happened to be able to speak with my father, and I spoke with my father on a great measure of things. My question started from, if I were to learn Japanese and Spanish, which one would be the easier to learn first? Better to learn first? And the answer, the result, was this whole cataclysmic conversation about the entire economy of Japan and the people and its connection to China and India and their pride, what they're doing. And it was just so much, so overwhelming to think that, well, Japan, they're a great country, but from what he was telling me, 15 to 20 years from now, maybe they might not be so substantiated in their power. Japan is a massive economic power right now, sure, but he says they're slowing down and they're somewhat deteriorating in their growth. And I find it really fascinating because he says, okay, the old population makes up about a third of Japan. And with that being, in 20 years, there won't be enough young people to be able to produce and uphold Social Security. It's a very similar problem as the United States is going through. So we have the baby boomers, right? That's another massive demographic that is going to phase out in time. So essentially the millennials are our hope. They're our salvation. So if you know anything about this age that we're a part of, the baby boomers were in a place where they wanted to be able to create change, and they were going through the war and those struggles, and they were suppressed, they were held against, and then they ended up settling for less, in which case they really decided, hey, love, sex, rock and roll, we're going to have a good time, and we're not going to go toward those dreams and ambitions. And now we have the millennials rise up and have this entitlement, but less than the entitlement, because the baby boomers are the ones who gave birth to these people and turned them into these entitled people. We have these people who believe in empathy and want to be able to change the world. And we can be able to do that because we rose up in the technological age, the information age that we're all a part of. And we are going to launch this social wave with this thing we call the internet, where we have a massive database of knowledge that we get to be able to actualize the wisdom from and share with the rest of the world. Communication, connection, the millennials are going to devastate what is to come, this generation. That's what I believe, and I believe that's what we're going to see. Apart from that, my conversation wasn't about millennials, it wasn't about baby boomers. Got a microphone right there. We really are going to see, by 2050, a third of the population is going to be Chinese, of the world, I'm saying. By 2050, a third of the population is going to be Chinese, and a third of the population is going to be India. Everything else, America and the other countries, are all going to blend into the minority at a third in completion. And, I heard a long time ago that we're all going to have brown eyes by about that time. It's not that far off. These generations of wealth are just going to bleed through, and blood is going to be everywhere in one form or another. So I really happen to believe, competition and domination is a dead age, or it's a dying age, and connective collaboration is what's going to rise to power. And it had nothing to do with this idea before, but even so, if you were to think, okay, these people are massively accounting for most of what the world is probably going to produce, then we have to stand up and take our hands together and collaborate to a new productive means, because they're going to do their thing. They're going to work for their country. They're going to come over to America, from what I learned, and they're going to study and basically touch base in being able to hone their crafts, and then take that information, that knowledge, that experience, that wisdom, that technology back to their countries, the motherland, and go back and reproduce there. Which is quite fascinating to think that people would actually do that after finding and seeing and embracing the opportunity of being in the United States of America. They would go back and say, hey, I happen to think it's better to help out our country and reverse everything and take years out of my own life and be altruistic for those people who didn't raise me to be as great as I am over there in America. Confused? I am. Naive? I am. Perfectly fine? Sure. China happens to be a communist country, so, that makes sense. My dad happened to show me a statistic on Bitcoin mining, and China accounts for 71% of all Bitcoin mining. Now, that doesn't include the other cryptocurrencies, just that. And the next runner-up is India at 4%. So if you can understand the population and how they centralize their focus, China is run by the government. So if the government tells somebody to do something, they're going to go full throttle. The population's all going to join, and they'll have their own centralized forces convene to their productive means. So, for example, the cryptocurrency at 71% is a massive exchange of that. They're thinking long term, the government, okay, if we take hold of all the cryptocurrency, then in the future, when the economy and everybody devotes their money into that currency, we're going to have a massive land grab. Okay, that makes sense. China also has the #1 solar panel usage, and they dominate in that space. Like, they have panda fields, literally solar panels that play out to look like a panda from sky view. Like, they are insane in some of these energy productive means. So if they can be able to devote that energy to something, cryptocurrency is one of them, and they're dominating in this new space that hasn't even been around for a decade now, and it's worth billions of dollars. Fascinating. In the macro, absolutely fascinating. I don't know much about this until now, but to be able to learn something like this, it's a new stomping grounds. So India is very computer based. They happen to have a very traditional format for what it is that they learn. They happen to inherit. They don't inherit skills or trades, but they happen to take on their family's trade generation by generation, and they continue to do that. Interestingly enough, Chinese people would come over here, they would learn how to do some certain thing, and then take that information back to the motherland. It kind of seems the same way with China, just by talking to one person. I have a friend who I was talking to, and he wants to become a coach, but basically he came here to go to school, learn some things, and now he's going back to India. I never asked him why, but he is. And then he's like, oh, well, that when I get back to India, that's when I can go full throttle and take myself seriously and join your business with you. So I never asked why, but, that's just what's happening. Fascinating stuff. I'm just fascinated. Now, Japan, to be able to understand this collective perspective from one person who's talking for their perspective of the country, right? And being projected through me and my knowledge. Japan basically is a high economic force. They have set the standard for being able to create things that are highly efficient, they're durable, they're precise, and they're quick.